Hello and welcome to the Moon Underwater. I'm Kelly Daniels.
And I am Steve Jones.
How you doing, Steve?
Doing all right. Good to be here on a Sunday when it's not, full of fans waiting for games to start and whatever else. So just the degenerates that are going to be here, us included.
That's right. There's no more NFL at this point. And so today, just to kind of launch right into it, we haven't seen each other for a little while, so it's like starting over again.
Yeah.
Let's. The topic today is one that is, affects our daily life. My daily life, several times a day, and as you know from the title, which I haven't decided yet, but we'll figure that out.
It's really cool.
It is the automobile, the motor vehicle, and I know we both have some love for this amazing invention. I also have a history of complaining about car infrastructure and some of the cost. What it really comes down to me is, like everything, it's trade-offs. You get certain things from this particular technology, but it exacts a toll. And we could say the same thing for social media and the internet and everything that's ever been invented.
Those are less critical, I think, for American, society, right? Like social media could go away, and people would have maybe a hole in their lives, unfortunately. But life would go on, right? Yeah,
totally, but not cars. We can't even a couple of days. There are certain places in America where you can live, and there are what I would call transportation redundancies. Essentially, if your car breaks down, you can take an Uber, you could take a bus, you could take a train. But I would say the majority of the land area of America, that's just not the case. If your car breaks down, you're pretty screwed.
How do you feel about where we are here? Do you think we have transportation redundancy?
No, not where I live.
I don't think so either.
Where I used to live in Rock Island, it was maybe a 10-minute walk from work and a 5-minute walk from the nearest grocery store. And if my car would have broken down, then, we could get around. Now, my wife also has a car, so we would need... Okay, I've written this article on this, which included me taking my kid to daycare on a bike with a little bike trailer.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of a harrowing experience, and we had to hide under an overpass while this huge rain came down.
Yeah.
And there's just cars whizzing around you while you're bringing a 2-year-old. And it just took too long, and it wasn't really practical. But now that we've moved out to LeClaire, there's no public transportation. You can't get an Uber, no Lyft, no nothing.
Is there no Uber out here?
What's that?
Is there no Uber out here?
There used to be, but not anymore. What I hear is that the Uber drivers all started doing Uber Eats because you don't have to deal with people. You don't have to worry about somebody throwing up in your back of your car.
Yeah.
And the money is more steady, and they just had stopped doing the driving and the actual picking people up, the taxi service. So you can get an Uber from like downtown to here, but you can't get from here back there generally.
So I live in the town over. It's a couple towns over, but it's, there's country between LeClaire and Eldridge where I live. And we used to be able to get Lyft, and Uber we couldn't get. And I took it to the airport a few times, like when I was traveling for work and I didn't want to park my car, and I would do that, but then it was real sketchy getting home. And it would be like, you got in at 11 p.m., you're going to have to call somebody to come and pick you up because nobody's answering the Lyft call. So
So we're stuck here, and I know this very well because my car just went into the shop, and I kind of wanted, you were traveling, but I wanted to cut because you're a car guy.
I am,
and I needed advice, but do you want to hear the story?
I do.
Okay,
yeah, man.
Here's the story. Yeah. So first off, I guess you'd say that there are different philosophies on how to deal with cars. If you're poor and you can just buy what you buy, and I remember my first car was a $500 car, and you just, it ran sometimes, and sometimes it didn't, and it would break down on
What was it?
It was a Ford Courier. People don't even know what that is.
It's like a van.
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the European.
It's a little tiny, a clone of like the Datsun pickup truck. A pickup truck is about as big as a compact car, really little.
Yeah.
And this was Ford's version of it. It was a 1972. The engine ran well, but it was funky, and I didn't have any money to fix it or knowledge, and so the clutch went out. So I learned how to drive it without a clutch.
Yeah.
By just timing it.
Yeah.
I could hear the pitch, and then I would have to stall it at a red light, and then put it in first, and then start it.
Do the bump
and it,
start.
And it would jump.
Yeah.
And I also, I've had cars without starters, so you have to bump start them everywhere. I rode around with this guy named Lee, complete juvenile delinquent. Not a juvenile. He was
Just a delinquent.
He was 21 and could buy alcohol for minors.
Yes.
And I was one of those minors, and so I became like a sidekick. It was dark, man. It was dark shit that we were into. I mean, not terrible, but I look back on it and like, wow, that was a real potential wrong road.
Yeah.
But he had a Pinto, Ford Pinto, and the driver's side door was sealed shut from an accident, so he always had to hop in through the window. And this is Southern California, so it never rains. It's always kind of nice out. Windows always down. And it had no starter, so he always had to park on a slant.
Sure.
But he could pop that thing and going 0 miles an hour, and I knew how to push it and jump in. And anyway, a lot of adventures with the Pinto.
So then what happened with your car? So
right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my philosophy now. Now I have friends who have been through 3 cars in the time that we've lived here.
You're looking at me, and I know that you're saying it's me. You just without saying it.
No, you're your own beast. You're a car guy. You have that.
I might have been through 4.
You have the souped up Miata. You have other cars. You have a cool looking truck that looks like a Baja 3000 truck or something.
Yes.
Fun. You're a fun car guy. You do it because it's fun. Others that I work with, who I've been working with for 15 years, they buy like decent used cars because there's this idea. I want to ask you about this, by the way. There's this truism that a new car, you're just wasting money by buying a new car. So I have friends who are on their 3rd used car because they buy them with 100,000 miles and then they drive them for a while or whatever.
Yeah.
But then they get a new used car. So my car, brand new, just got my first job out of grad school. First, salary job. And I bought a brand new car that was only $16,000 plus, they got me with a couple thousand more and whatever. And it was an all-wheel drive Suzuki SX4. And it's a fun little tiny, like almost a cheaper Mini Cooper kind of vibe.
Yes.
But all-wheel drive and real agile, small engine. So you have to, but just kills it through the snow.
You got to wring its neck to make it go.
Oh, totally.
Right? Yeah.
But it like through the snow, I'm just like hauling ass up completely snow and ice covered hills while big pickup trucks are sliding around, big macho trucks. So I like this car, and I bought it brand new, and I thought I'm just going to keep it until the transmission or the engine block goes. And that's going to be and if I have to drop $1,000 in it to get new, whatever seals, essentially gaskets and stuff go out, and it costs for.
How many miles are on it now?
Only 140 something.
So you know how I feel about that car. I love it.
Yeah, you like it. Yeah.
I love it because I like.
You want it. When I'm ready to get rid of it,
it's done. It's like a race car, right? Like there's stuff that can be done there. I am all about relatively inexpensive fun. Yeah. Because, to go out and spend, like the new Corvette, which is beautiful and it's neat and everything, but man, $70,000-$80,000 on a car that it's like, no, you could have a lot of fun driving a car every day. And then if you were somebody that was like a track rat or you like to go do autocross or whatever, you could have a car you drove every single day for not that much money that you went and just had a blast with on the weekend. So that's kind of my thing. I like that.
So I just went with it as an economic thing that, I could just keep this thing running and, take care of it and wash it so it doesn't get rusted out.
Where do you take it to get it worked on? Because there's no Suzuki dealer anymore.
No.
So what?
I just have gone to different auto shops,
Okay.
and I go and go to ones that are recommended, but then one that was really good got kind of bought up by a different, like a chain. So things have changed. Okay, so this is what happened. This is a bad story, and I don't relish hammering businesses, but there is a certain auto shop that is about 50 feet away from where we're sitting right now.
Okay.
And I took them in for
Looking around.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm nervous yeah. So I took it in, and this is a local shop, and I could have got a coupon. I just need an oil change.
Yeah.
So I could have got a coupon and done it for $25 somewhere, but I'm like, I'll just take it to the local place. It's a walk away from my house. And they were like, well, we're really busy. We'll get to it on a Friday. And so I get my oil change there. And, they put synthetic oil in. And they also put oil in that isn't, that the owner's manual says not. But it's not going to hurt it.
It'll work.
It's 10W30. And for some
5W20.
Yeah, that's
All right.
what my car, it said, whatever.
'Cause,
I'm like, okay, well, I got this synthetic oil. It lasts longer. That's fine. And then you're going to know where this is going, although I didn't. It took me a while. A certain amount of time later, I noticed that there was some fluid on my garage.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, it's an old car, seals break, whatever. I don't know what kind of fluid this is. I'm not smart about this. It's at the front of the car. So I take it to another shop. Oh, I also checked the dipstick. The oil is like really low, like way below.
Like dangerously low.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It showed up on the dipstick, but it was below the first of the two little holes. It's supposed to be between these holes. So I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I take it to a shop down the road that had good reviews, but it also is a local chain that got bought by another local chain.
Oh, wow.
It got bought by something called Car X.
Okay.
Okay. I go there, I drop it off, and the guy that's looking at it is like 20 years old. And he's talking to me. I'm like, okay, 20-year-old can know how to fix cars. But I got the real distinct impression that he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. Like, I could just, he just was bullshitting.
I love that.
And he started like coming up with, I think the oil pan gasket is leaking, but I don't know if we can get one, and blah, blah, blah. So I Google it. He's like, well, they don't make Suzukis anymore. So I Google it.
It's a Fiat
and then
underneath.
I know.
Yeah.
I Google it, and you can get them at AutoZone, like, for $15.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that's weird. And he's like, it's like 3 quarts low on oil. I'm like, that low? Shit. So I immediately went to the AutoZone, bought some oil.
Yeah.
I filled in, put 1 quart in, checked the dipstick. It's completely up to exactly where it should be.
So not 3 quarts low.
It was 1 quart.
Okay.
Okay, whatever.
1, 3, what's the
So
difference?
then I just asked there's somebody my wife knows who I feel is a really competent person. She swears by a place way off in West Davenport called Wallach. I'll mention their name because it's a good...
Okay.
You ever heard of Wallach?
I haven't, but I got one for you after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I go there. It's got like, 200 reviews and 4.8. It's...
Nice.
So I go there. They fit me in. And here's the diagnosis. You ready for it? Whoever changed your oil didn't screw the oil filter all the way on.
Oh, the oil filter. Okay, I was going to go with the drain plug. Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
And-
it's an oil pan gasket.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And so
Some rookie shit.
all of that, and my engine could have blown up.
They were trying to speed up your process of, and if the engine goes, then
I guess so.
then I'll get a new car.
So I drive it away from them, and they didn't charge me a cent. They're just like, nah, we just
tighten it up.
We just tightened it up, and they also put some dye in it in case there was a leak anywhere else. And they told me to come back in a few days, and we'd check it out. I haven't gone back because what happened on the way back, one of my back brakes just started squealing and grinding, and the caliper had just like pinched or whatever.
Up, yeah.
Yeah, seized up. So it's like, and I see there's like a big gouge in the rotor. So then I go and I take it to another shop. By the way, I had to work through all this. So I was taking my bicycle to the shop, pulling it off my car, riding to work. So now I decided on a shop that is a brake and muffler shop right by my work.
That seems good.
So it's called Campos.
Okay.
Campos.
Compost. Oh, yeah.
Bunch of Mexican dudes,
Yeah. They know what they're doing.
I say maybe this is like somehow biased or positive, but a Mexican auto shop, I feel like I trust.
Totally. Oh my God, yeah. Well, you
And-
spent a lot of time in Central America,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Mexico, and there's a lot of talleres, right? Like
man.
the places, and there are some cars that you're looking at. You're like, there's no way that should still be running.
Oh yeah,
Old
those
Nissan
buses.
Surus, the buses.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And so yeah, I have to agree with this.
So Campos, I took them there. They check out the brakes. It's like, yeah, new rotors, new caliper
Yeah.
on one side, and also something is in the front, like ball joint and some other rocker
Probably
arm
I
thing.
mean, 15 years it's been.
Yeah.
I think you're. Yeah.
And so I'm like, do the job, you know.
Yeah.
And they took it, you know. Anyway, it was a pain in the ass. I had to get a ride home from work, get a ride to work.
All right, wait. I have a number in my head for what I think all that costs.
Okay. Do you want to say it,
Can
or
I
do you want
say
me
it?
to say it?
I'm going to say it.
I better not be. It better not be lower than my. Okay, go ahead.
$1,000.
Yes.
All right.
1,000 and then 72 because they had to go. The first caliper they used failed immediately on the test run, so they got a $15 more expensive one on there. And it's funny.
Fuck yeah.
You look at it, and it also had the tube, the oil, the brake fluid tube that they changed.
I mean, yeah,
So-
the brake line
Yeah.
at the end, because there's
Yeah.
like a spot where it.
Yeah.
I'm like very dangerous when I know about mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
Everything I know I've learned from YouTube.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
That's, you know.
but it's great. It's easier if you have a car that's like common, right? Relatively common car.
Yeah.
Like you said, I have an old souped-up Miata, and that's one that there's a zillion videos on YouTube for how to do stuff. So I got brave with that. Brakes scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like messing with the brakes, and I've started to work on cars.
They're kind of important.
Yeah, I mean it's a critical piece of back brakes, less so, but you know they knew that the caliper was bad when they took it out. For me, I look at it, and somebody might go, "Oh my God, $1,000! How could you spend that?" And I go with okay, well, what's it worth to have the car running, and it's running fine otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
No, it
I
was-
think that's about right. I think
It
that's
was
a
well
decent
worth
price.
it. I
Yeah.
mean, I could have many years ago. I could have gotten a new car. I could have
Sure.
bought a used car. I could be leasing a car, and you're talking about hundreds of dollars per month forever,
Yeah.
or many tens of thousands of dollars all in one pop. $1,000 like once or twice a year for and that if you look at all of the maintenance I've done for this car over its lifetime, it probably comes to like $100 a year or something.
It's
And
spectacular.
it's been great. And
Yeah.
so I didn't mind at all. And also I think these guys they seem just very professional. And also it's funny because the old caliper is on the passenger side. It was the driver's side that seized up. So you look at it, and they had to get the more expensive caliper. So you go to the other side, and it just looks cooler. It looks like a little
like
bit of
newer.
It's kind of a blue color, and
Nice.
it's bigger and chunkier, and so I got one
cool one.
one cool one, and one not. Yeah, it's, so yeah, good guess on the $1,000.
I like to have at least an idea of what I think I'm getting myself into. I was recently I had some maintenance done on my truck, and it's now going into year 5. And I had it at the dealer just for an oil change because it was cheap, and I didn't feel like crawling around under the truck, and I don't know. I just don't do them. And they wanted $800 for the front differential, the transfer case, the transmission, and the rear differential. And I was like, you want $200 each for fluid? And they were like, oh, it's really hard to get to. And I was like, I can do that on the ground in my garage. Like
sounds like they're ripping you off.
Yeah, so I said, no, I'm going to pass on all of those. And they're like, well, it's maintenance that you really need to do. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself. I'm not super handy, but, I mean, I have a breaker bar that I can use to get the, so I went and looked it up, and it was like, okay, here's where the fill plug is. Start with that so that in case you can't get the fill plug out and you drain it, well, then you're fucked. You're going to have to do something and get it towed or whatever. So I went to... I started with I think the rear differential because it was the easiest to get to. I spent the better part of a couple days just crawling around on the floor of the garage, mostly because it was like, okay, I'm going to start with this one, and I've got a TV out in the garage, and I was waxing skis and doing other stuff, and okay, it's all drained. I'm going to get back on the floor. But I spent 2 days and did it. The most expensive piece of it was, this is my favorite, you could really put anything in the front differential, the transmission. I mean, there's a particular fluid you use, but there wasn't anybody that like specially made it, and the rear diff. The transfer case was the one that was like, only Toyota makes the really actual, like the stuff that you should use. And I was like, well, how much can that be? A liter was $90, which
nectar of the gods, man. It's like scotch.
It's actually more than scotch, I think. Like, a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label. And I was like, man, that seems like a lot. And I was like, well, how much do you need? 1.1 liters. Those fuckers. I mean, so you had to buy 2. Or if I was smart, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, I'm going to buy 1. And I'm just going to take like a little bit of the old fluid out in like a little cup and then pump it back in. Yeah. Guess what I forgot to do?
Hold on to the stuff that you drained.
That's right.
What about just, I don't know, isn't there something that's really similar that you could cut it with?
I was thinking
it's like
that.
cocaine or something, and you need to, break out a little.
It's like baking powder. You throw a little of that in there.
Oregano in your pot.
You would think, and I ended up with 1, and I did drive it with 1, and I was like, it's probably 0.1. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's tiny. As I'm saying this, I'm realizing that there's no video of us doing this. I'm holding my fingers apart, about an inch.
Yeah, little.
Very little.
Tiny amount. I wasn't thinking that either, that people can't see us.
Well, they should. They should be able to see us. Eventually, we'll solve that problem.
We should do a vodcast. Which means we also have to drink vodka. No.
Oh, my God.
No, is it called a vodcast? It's a video podcast.
Yeah.
But I hear that no one will listen to a podcast unless it's on YouTube. Or we could actually just put this stuff on YouTube, but without a video. But I feel like we should probably just get a phone and... Anyway, I mean, we're so good looking.
Right, we are.
It is...
That's why we haven't done the video yet.
One of the customers here just looked over and rolled her eyes.
More than one, I think. Yeah.
What here? Okay.
So we're talking cars today.
So I bagged on the local business so far, and there's also some just completely fucked up news that happened about.
Ooh.
I think 1 week ago. I don't know if you read that article that I sent you. You may not have.
I watched the video you sent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was it? Because I didn't actually.
Parking.
What?
Parking.
Oh, yeah. The parking. Yeah. So I have this like new urbanist stuff about parking minimums.
We're definitely going to get to that.
Okay. So it's mandatory parking minimum. Anyway, but no, last night I sent you something. Maybe it didn't come through. There was an accident about 30 feet away from where we sit.
Oh, no.
And here's the story. Somebody in the parking lot crashed into the front porch, killed a woman.
Oh.
And she was smoking, and it was just, one of those things. You can assume that
across the street, or like?
I think it was a customer who was leaving and then was wasted, probably. I mean, this is a criminal thing right now, and I don't know the names.
Allegedly, Your Honor.
Yeah, allegedly, and that somebody's. And I think the article said that she had reversed. Okay, this is what I heard. She pulled out, hit a one of those telephone poles that are in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then threw it into reverse, and then, we assume drunkenly just stomped on the accelerator, reversed up, bounced up onto the elevated front porch where people are smoking, and killed a woman. And anyway.
Can I make the comment?
Please.
They say smoking kills.
Smoking. Oh, my God.
Wow.
That is way too soon.
Oh, it is.
Way too soon. But
We've already been canceled. It's
at
fine.
At least it's not warm beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so way bummer. I mean, it was to the point where I was like, are they going to be open? And yeah, I mean, they fixed the rail that had been knocked out. So
all right, so follow
major
up
bummer
on that.
there.
Not anything related to that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a car accident?
Oh yeah.
How about hitting something stationary?
Have I hit something stationary? Really, I think I mildly bumped into something like backing up and hit like I think it was like a thing that you couldn't see through your back window, but was like, it just hit a bumper thing. But
Okay.
no, not, so I've never been driving in an accident.
Really?
No, actually I was when I was 16 and I was only learner's permit. I was driving by and somebody backed up, like trying to do a 3-point turn, and I was going by and they backed up and hit the driver's side. Like,
so not your...
It wasn't my fault.
Hey.
But I've been in. So I wrote this article. It's in the Sun magazine. You can Google it. It's called "No Accident." It's the closest I've gotten to hate mail from anything I've written.
Wow.
Not hate mail, but it's about all these accidents I was a passenger in throughout high school and after high school.
Yeah.
And it was like, how did I possibly live? And they were all drunk driving accidents because...
Oh, really?
Well, think about the 80s, man. Everybody was drinking and driving, and then finally it became known as something you shouldn't do.
Yeah, by the time we started, like my group got old enough and we were, in high school and drinking and doing whatever, we were super careful. Like there was always a DD, or we were staying somewhere, or we were walking.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
yes, the 80s was wild for that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not bagging on my parents on this. Like everybody, my mom would drive around and those cup holders that we put our coffee in.
Yeah.
That was for Bartles and James wine coolers,
That's
man.
right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
my grandfather, who was like one of the more upstanding people. You know
Yeah.
about him because
Yeah, I
I
do.
wrote about him in my memoir.
Yeah.
He would always make this big old double gin and tonic when he'd take us out for dinner on Friday night.
Well,
Like,
yeah, that way you don't have to refill.
Yeah, you have
know?
to he would make it when he got home from work or, before dinner, and he'd kind of drink about half of it and then bring it into his car and then drive it to the, and,
Wow.
he was like a very upstanding citizen. That was just normal. But yeah, anyway.
I can say I've never made myself or had a roadie
No.
while I was driving.
Yeah.
I did hitchhike home once from an Iowa Hawkeye game in Iowa City, and
Yeah.
the driver in traffic asked me if I wanted a beer, and I said, of course.
Yes.
Me and a buddy of mine, we were sitting in the back
Totally.
seat. She was cute. She got out of the car, grabbed 4 beers.
Yeah.
One for everybody in the car.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is like the greatest hitchhiking ride home. And
Yeah.
turns out she was in one of my classes that I had not yet been to in late September. And I went the following week, and I was like, wait, I recognize you.
Yeah.
I went,
We drank beer.
oh, my
while
God,
driving.
you
Yeah.
gave me beer.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
and a ride. Thank
Yeah,
you.
You loved her.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
drop that class, though, because not showing up for a month was,
That
Yeah.
does tend to
yep.
mess up your grade.
Did you ever hitchhike?
I have hitchhiked, yes.
Speaking of cars. So,
Okay.
Europe?
I hitchhike. One time I hitchhiked. I didn't hitchhike in. Yeah, I did hitchhike in Europe. And I hitchhiked in America. I hitchhiked on Christmas Day.
whoa.
My cousin and I, my cousin Nils, which I think I've mentioned him before. I'm not going to do that. You know what? We need to get the bell like you.
I love the
you
bell.
said.
I'm ready to just bring a bell.
Yeah.
Like with like a ding.
Yeah, you
and
should do
just,
that.
Yeah.
I could also just find a bell sound on the internet and download it.
Seems
but
like a lot of work.
it is. Yeah, it's a
We can
hassle.
just order a
It
bell
takes
from
like-
Amazon and they deliver
takes
it.
10 minutes and so okay. So Christmas Day, Christmas Eve is where it starts. I live on a place called Lawton House, which is an infamous crash pad. This is in Redlands, California.
Okay.
And I live there with my cousin and everybody else who just kind of needs a place to crash. We're like 19 years old, something like that. And it's a heavy drinking place. And we had run, like the person whose parents owned it let him just live there. and he was supposed to collect like money to pay the bills.
Sure.
But he didn't get. Nobody had jobs. Nobody. So the water was turned off
He collected what money he could.
for beer and
Right.
and he
Yeah.
would So we had no water.
Oh.
And no, any. Basically, the only thing we had was electricity. I don't know why they hadn't turned that off yet. But anyway, we're at Lawton House, and it's Christmas Eve, and just everybody just starts partying like crazy because they'd gotten whatever they. This is their time to party without the next day they're going to be with parents and all that kind of stuff, and so everybody we knew, all these people we didn't know, it was a couple hundred people showed up from the community.
Yeah.
And it was like heavy tequila drinking and all that. And Nils and I were supposed to meet his mom 8 a.m. to go to our grandparents' house at the beach.
Yeah.
The next day, and she lived across town.
This is the gin and tonic grandfather.
No, this is a different one. This
Okay.
is the other. This is the fighter pilot grandfather who was also a heavy drinker, and more of a Scotch guy.
Ah, yes.
But so Nils and I are partying, drinking, getting wasted, and I dropped him off at his mom's house late that night by borrowing somebody's moped. Speaking of drinking and driving,
yes.
But I hadn't figured out how am I supposed to stay here because I have to get the moped back. And anyway, I ended up just passing out.
Yeah.
And I wake up in the morning and Nils is there at the foot of my bed they left us. And because I was supposed to actually drive a second car, Nils didn't have a driver's license. And so not only could I not go, Nils couldn't go because the other car that was driving was full. And so, anyway, they were pissed at us and pissed at me. And Nils missed out.
You got him there.
So everybody at the is wasted. People it looks like some kind of a cult suicide.
Gotta be.
Everybody's
people passed out everywhere.
Everywhere, bloated. And then this guy named Ray, who owned the place, and he was just he was like the punching bag of everybody. But he had, I shouldn't do this, buggy eyes, and he would sleep with his eyes open because he had these bulgy eyes.
Yeah.
And his mouth open.
Oh yeah.
And people would do things like ash their cigarettes. It wasn't really funny. It was pretty fucked up. But anyway,
at the time, it was really funny.
It was kind of funny. Hot sauce and.
Right.
Anyway, we're. So we get out of there, and there's nothing to do. We have no water in this place. We can't even shower. Hangover like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And we decide just to hitchhike to Christmas. And it was this all-day epic hitchhiking, walking.
How far was it? In the car, if you were to get in the car and drive, how far were you supposed to be?
An hour and 15 minutes.
I have to imagine that would take a while in California.
Every freeway change, you basically have to be dropped off because...
And then you got to walk.
Yeah.
Right?
We had to walk really far from our first ride because there was a giant Spaghetti Junction, huge, and we had to get the one that was going in the right direction.
Oh.
So we had to cut through this city access road along this drainage ditch, and I'm starting to get the thirst, and we got picked up. Our next ride after our second ride of the day was by this big, huge guy, hugely obese guy in this big, huge, Cadillac kind of car, like a vintage Cadillac.
Yeah.
And I hop in the front, Nils hops in the back, and he pulled up even before we put our thumbs out because we were going to go to the gas station to get a big gulp drink.
Yeah, yeah.
We were thirsty. We were starting to get the thirst. But this guy pulled up when he saw it. Hey, you guys. And so we hop in. Hey,
That's
man.
Sort of terrifying.
Well, and here's what he said. Yeah, what you guys doing today? It's Christmas Day. We're going to He's going to the beach, How about I get a case of beer and drive you all the way? I'm like,
oh, boy.
Yeah, well, I think that sounds
This
good.
could get creepy shortly.
And then he starts telling this story about how he and his buddies went to this local lake, Lake Paris. And they got this one guy, and they tied him up and they pulled his pants down and started spanking him with one of his. Oh no, this is how he led. He led. Yeah, I was just watching this porno.
Oh no!
Earlier.
That's the car you want to be in.
I'm 19. Nils is like 17. Nils is and he's like, oh yeah, this porno. It took place in a prison.
Oh no,
man. I don't know. This one guy, the guards must not have liked him because they just tore his ass up.
No.
And then I look over the back of the seat, and Nils, like
saucer ride.
I'm ready to we're going to have to choke this guy out. Something's going to happen. Nils' head is back, and he's snoring slightly, just mouth
Your
wide
backup
open.
is passed out.
Completely asleep. And
Nils, how dare you?
And and so we're driving, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, okay, if this guy tries to kidnap us, I'm going to just grab the wheel and drive us off and hope that we survive. And, I was very scared. And then he said, and he just kind of assessed the situation, and I don't know what he was, I actually don't know what was going on in his mind. But he just kind of summed it up in his own head and said, I think I'll just let you guys off on the next stop. I go, yeah, that'd be a good idea. And he did, and then just pulled over, and then we hopped out, and it was like this little gas station island place. And
you got your big gulp.
we went to a place called Del Taco, which was California.
Yeah.
Like a smaller chain than Taco Bell. We got a burrito, and then big, huge, endless drinks, and immediate killing heartburn. I remember
story of my life.
So yeah, and then after that, it was more like a lot of waiting, and we got a ride from some nice people, and then our final ride was a guy. This is a guy out of your tribe. He had this sleek black little car that was customized.
Yeah,
and he pulls up. And I hop in the front, and he's closer to our age, in his 20s probably, and he didn't say anything. We said, hey, we're going to the end of the freeway. The 55 freeway just becomes something called Newport Boulevard, and that's where we're going down the street. And he goes, okay. He just nodded, and we pop in, and he just floored it. It was G-force head back against, and he pulls onto this really crowded Southern California freeway and just starts veering through traffic.
Yes.
Wow. There is no way through, and he's going 90 and doesn't slow down and just somehow slips through magic. And I look up, I'm just terrified, gripping the seat.
The oh shit handles.
Oh,
if
my
you can
God.
find one, yeah.
And I see he's got a little noose hanging from his rearview mirror, and it's swinging back and forth from his curve. And he's just hauling ass, and then the freeway ends onto just a big highway that has, and basically we get to a red light, and he just swings over to the side and pulls over, and I'm like,
here you go.
Yep. We hop out, and then Nils later, he's like, yeah, man, I looked in the back of the hatchback behind the back seat. There was a baseball bat, a machete, and a ski mask.
Perfect. Oh my God.
And then we finally walked the rest of the way,
but he
which
got
was
you there.
a mile. Oh,
right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It was a positive ride.
Wow.
And this is after waiting for a ride for 4 hours. It was gnarly. I mean, it was really tough. But we finally walked to my grandfather's house, and everybody was super pissed at us, and there was no presents, or dinner was already put away, and they didn't offer us anything, and just bad vibes, and
and dirty looks, right?
It was just a shitty Christmas. So hitchhiking to Christmas was not a success.
It does make for a great car story, though, and
It
I
was
do
a good-
really like that. Several good car stories and rides.
How about you? Have you hitchhiked?
I just
Well,
the
you
Iowa
told me the
City,
one about-
and that was
They gave you beer
It was a drunken hit. It was a 30-minute walk home, and we were just feeling lazy and drunk. And it was like, we'll go out to Melrose, right outside of where the stadium is. Or right,
Melrose.
Melrose
Avenue. Place, man. That's
Avenue.
Los Angeles. Okay.
Yeah.
Similar.
And we walked out and threw our thumbs out, and about
Yeah.
15 seconds later, that's when they stopped.
Yeah, because they knew you were one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of ragamuffins on. I remember Nils and I arguing about like hitchhiking techniques.
Yeah.
In like when we were stuck in Orange County, like before we got the death ride guy. I said, no, you should like sit down, and like he was standing up, and every car would go by him, like, and he's sort of
You gotta
buff.
look more desperate.
Yeah, he's sort of buff, and
Okay.
I'm like, you look like a brigand, like you're gonna got these big hands. He's this big Swedish kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, the people are scared of you. If you sit down and make yourself small, then you look more helpless. And he's like, we're arguing, like full on arguing, because we're all hungry and hungover and tired. And so he sits there, and still nobody picked us up. It
didn't matter.
It didn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
We needed the guy with the skull, the noose driver.
Yeah. Have you ever picked up a hitchhiker?
I picked up a hitchhiker? Maybe, but I don't. Maybe I would have remembered. Probably not. I think I was too scared of.
Yeah, I can see that.
A friend of mine. Maybe I won't mention his name because maybe he doesn't want this story to be out. Although I suspect he would. But he hitchhiked from Arkansas to California and back. Way back when he was.
Whoa.
But he said it was pretty common that, men would proposition him. Like do you have, and one guy's like, says something like basically it's, something like about guy sex versus women's sex. He goes, twice the fun and half the mess.
Oh, man.
And I've been thinking about that ever since. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to formulate it, but anyway.
Well, it's like from the movie Dogma at the beginning. George Carlin's in it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you got to give all the truckers head.
Yeah.
Like it's the rules of the road, man.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Yeah, and he's got the face. Yeah. Oh my God.
So no, I don't think so. But I've also had, pretty mild hitchhiking. Not a whole lot. Like this was the probably mid to late 80s, and I think after that it was just like you just don't do it, And
does it depend on where you are? Like, is that
probably
a thing?
Yeah, but also it depends upon. I remember in Laguna Beach, I lived in South Laguna and worked at a restaurant in Laguna, and that's like whatever, 5 miles away, 8 miles away maybe, along PCH. And one of my managers, Paris, his name was, like a obviously gay guy and very handsome and restaurant manager. And he would hitchhike from the south part of Laguna, and he would always get picked up, usually by somebody who knew him. Like everybody knew him, but also it was like the gay community in Laguna were like, it was like a pretty
It was normal.
It was like way back in the day. It was a safe space for.
How far back? 80 something?
Yeah, in the 80s.
Okay.
In the 90s. But it was kind of a rainbow flag place, and interestingly enough, their mayor was openly gay, but also Republican and fiscally, it's rich people but who want to party.
Right.
And that's kind of
That works.
But he would get rides every single time without a worry, because you'd look at him and you could just think, not an axe murderer. You just knew it. Like, that guy belongs here. This is just how he travels.
Okay.
And now they have free shuttles that just go up and down the coast.
Well, so taking care of that transportation redundancy that we started out
Yes.
with, right? Like, we made our own when we needed it. You throw your thumb out. Now, rather than throwing your thumb out, you have an app on your phone that you could easily get that ride.
Yeah.
Which, kind of brings us back around to the car, right? Like how reliant on it, I suppose we are. Which mine, I am ultra reliant on the car. Like I am horrible with. A lot of it's how I grew up. I grew up out in the middle of nowhere, west of Chicago, and people are like, "Oh, it was a suburb," and I'm like, "Yeah." And I grew up way outside of that suburb.
Yeah.
And the drive to my high school was 30 minutes, 35 minutes in the morning.
Right.
And my there was no kids when we first moved in. There was no kids my age in the neighborhood. I mean, when I say no kids my age, I mean there was no kids up through like between kindergarten and probably junior high when I moved in. So like I was in kindergarten, there was nobody my age. Some folks moved in for a little while, and then they left. They had 2 kids that were about me and my sister's age, and there was nobody within. Well, the front of the neighborhood was a mile away. It's out in the woods, so you needed a car. Like you weren't going to see anybody without one.
No doubt.
So I was hooked. Like I saw that was freedom, because on a bike, which I do like riding bikes now. My parents would never let me go ride on the country roads. Like there was no way you're going to get hit by a car. There's not. So it was like you're stuck unless you have a car.
Oh yeah.
So I was crazy about like driving when I was 16. I would drive. I had a car, and I would drive to late in my sophomore year. I could park probably 3/4 of a mile from the high school with a walk through like a field, like marshy area to get there, kind of. Yeah. But it was normal because it was a movie theater and they let the kids park there.
Yeah.
It was like the freedom that I saw in the car that I really liked. Like it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, it is the perfect vehicle for. Again, it's transportation freedom. Yeah. It's transportation independence. You don't have to wait for the bus. But where you live, there was no bus. There was nothing. It's just totally. We designed our if you get into this new urbanist stuff, and it's a major wormhole, and if you want a wormhole, then if you're listening and if your life is lacking something, then you can dive into new urbanism and strong towns movement. And it's really complex, and it goes way, way deep in, and it really is the weeds of public policy and civil engineering.
So we got to talk about this, the parking thing, right?
Yeah, the parking thing.
We got to talk about this.
Okay, so we're going to it's not, so whatever criticism I have over driving is not the actual automobile. It's an amazing invention, and they're cool.
Yep.
And I love them, but that we have designed our whole lives around these cars in ways that when we go to Europe, there's plenty of cars, but there's other stuff.
Right.
And here there's just that. And so it gets us stuck on occasion. So you want to talk about the parking mandatory? So what do you think about that?
I had no idea it was a thing.
Yeah.
And so here's what it is. For the uninitiated, most, all, I don't know how to, a vast majority of cities, small cities, towns, if you were to open a restaurant, you have to have so many parking spaces off street for that restaurant.
Yeah. Or hardware store, right, or anything. Yeah, bakery, whatever.
Bakery, it could be that there's a parking garage that they consider maybe would cover that, right? Yeah. But that if they would rather have sit vacant a building for years than have anybody in it because, it doesn't have off-street parking.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, you have got to be kidding me. Like,
it's crazy.
The idea that, the patrons of that place, whatever it is, they're just going to take up all the street parking.
Yeah. Okay,
so that's Europe, and it doesn't necessarily happen that way.
Yeah.
Sure, it can be crowded. Spain is, and in particular Valencia, where my wife's from, is infamously impossible to find parking to the point where they used to actually double park, because it's so flat.
Yeah.
You would leave your car in neutral because everybody drove a manual, and you would push the car out of the way if you needed to get out.
That's awesome.
It is great.
That is so crazy, man.
But we don't have that problem here, right?
No.
Like, so to
We
me,
overshoot our parking
by
needs
so much.
by like 90%.
Right.
It's nuts.
It drove me crazy to think that it was like this
They're
seems-
stopping mom and pop
yes.
businesses from opening up because you have to also buy a huge lot, and the number of parking spaces that they demand is completely bonkers. Like,
7 for every doctor, 7 parking spaces for every doctor in a practice. I was
wow.
like,
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So my thought was, here we are in, it felt like it's something that would come from central planning of a communist country. Like,
Totally.
there must be, and I was like, no. If they want to open that up, and it's successful, and they come up with, well, look, there's just not enough parking for everybody that's there on the street. Okay, well, maybe they'd move. Maybe they would. But to deny the opportunity seems awful.
Yeah.
And instead, let's have a dilapidated building then, and let's just let it sit there and wait
Forever.
Well,
and what happens is that the only places that can afford to open up are multinational chains.
Right.
So, somebody wants to open up a little restaurant, little bar and grill, and they want to get a loan, and they like, but you also have to build this whole new parking lot and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we just can't. The numbers don't work. So what happens? A Chili's moves in.
And they buy 2 lots.
They buy 2 lots, and they bulldoze it all, and then they build another Chili's, and it's like, okay, I'm not saying that that's the worst thing in the world, but it's also not the best,
It doesn't seem like what what we're all about, right? Like,
No.
hey, you know what? Give somebody the chance. Let's let them open it up. Let's see what. No. Don't give them the chance to create their own Chili's. They make their own chain. They become successful. That's great, but to have to not give that opportunity seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
And so the video was 20 minutes, 15 minutes on YouTube, and I watched it and I went, wait a second. So the other part was, these exist? Like, that's a thing?
It's called mandatory parking minimums, and it's the rule of the land, and it was invented probably sometime in the 50s, or I don't know when it was invented, but it's one of those things that we do and you can just end up with conversations with people about, trying to revitalize downtown. They always say the same thing. Yeah, but where are people going to park? And it is just the Strong Towns people, they have some really hard data. Those kind of neighborhoods where they just forget the mandatory parking. And you know what? It isn't easy to park there, but they're really prosperous. They make money, and they also have a lot of tax revenue that you get out of it, which is what your city should be wanting to do.
Right.
Should be operating in an intelligent
tax
way.
Base, right? Like, and not even like thinking of it in a, hey, we're gonna raise the percentage instead on everybody else. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have more people paying in?
Yeah,
I know what I want.
It's an easy answer, and I feel like there's a certain kind of American who has taken the always having multiple free parking spaces within 10 feet of the entrance of the place they want to go is a human right. And anything that violates that is absolutely unacceptable. And I have to say that a lot of the people that have expressed this are also really anti-socialist.
Yeah.
And like, what are those darn socialists? I'm like, well, this mandatory parking minimum
that's a totally communist idea.
Totally.
Worse than that. Like,
totally.
It's like you will have this. Like, there's like a very, it doesn't.
Good accent.
It does not. Like, I'm looking at it going, wait a minute. I thought we lived in a free country. No, we do until we run out of parking spaces.
Yeah.
And then it's not anymore.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. It's not a free market kind of idea at all.
And I'm the kind of, like, I'm enough of a car nut that I want the spot. I look for the perfect parking spot.
Yeah.
Like, I want the one that's furthest away, or I want the one that probably somebody's not getting out on the driver's side to my passenger side or driver's side, so that I'm not looking at getting door dings. I won't. You know, the truck is approaching 5 years. This will be the longest I've had any car.
Whoa.
And there's
5
no
years,
door dings on it. Yeah,
Nice.
5 whole years. Yeah. And that goes back to when I was like 16.
Somebody's going to key it now just
I know.
because you said that.
My beloved Marge.
Marge. It's a cute. Well, it's kind of not cute. It's sort of cute, but it's sporty. I also feel like I know that throughout my life I would drive around for half an hour rather than pay for parking, but I also now I'm like, parking is a commodity, and sometimes paying $5 for the night is not the worst thing in the world.
Not the worst thing that could happen.
You get a covered parking lot, and
I completely agree.
And also walking a block to the place you're going to go is not the end of the world. I mean, some
It's
people have
really not.
mobility issues, but most people don't, and
Well, so the
we
video
do.
that we watched for this was about, it was in Fayetteville.
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah, which may or may not be a trip coming up.
Yeah,
for
we
us.
should go there.
I am thinking that
It would be a road trip, I would have to say.
it would.
yeah.
Yeah. How many hours? You suppose that's like 8 hours?
We could talk to my friend who hitchhiked because he's from there.
You want to hitchhike there?
Yeah,
That
let's
gets a little
hitchhike there.
scary.
And, like,
Which one of us is on the line?
yeah,
Who's
we'll take turns, but twice the fun and half the mess. Whatever that means.
don't know.
We'll drive. We'll drive.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and I think it's like a 10-hour drive though. I think it's kind of far away.
Yeah. You
But-
can drive a manual, right?
Of course.
All right. So we were talking about it. Yeah.
Don't you insult me by asking that
my-
goddamn question,
My
man.
beloved Marge is a manual transmission.
Yeah.
And we could take Marge down there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good road trip car, except for the whole, my God, how does a V6 powered Toyota get 17 miles to the gallon and not
And it
really have a
does.
lot of power? Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Oh boy, does it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
We don't need to worry about the logistics right now,
Yeah.
but that would be a good trip.
I sure think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have somebody to talk to down there, and I'm not going to jinx it by saying when I would like to go. But
your football team is doing pretty well. I hear.
maybe.
I saw it was
Yeah.
5-0 on scoreboard.
I'm just going to say the last 2 weeks it's been for the games, the football where no one scores, according to Americans. My team has scored just a few goals, 11 in 2 weeks in 2 games, and that's true for the opposing teams of Arsenal. They have scored none goals. So by a total of 11-0 Arsenal has won the last.
you
last
guys
couple
sound
of
like
weeks.
bullies.
We are.
I think you should.
God, it's great.
You should be a little kinder,
And
more
we-
inclusive of the lesser good teams.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they can get fucked as far as I care. And they showed them what it was like. It was
All right.
fantastic.
I'll root for Arsenal this
Yes.
year.
Yes.
But once they win, then I'm going to turn on
And
them.
you're out.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, they win too much.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like I'm sick of the Chiefs, man.
I'm sick of the Chiefs.
Fuck the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they
Taylor
won.
Swift and her stupid
That's
boyfriend.
not the reason. Like, I mean, they seem like a cute couple. Come on now.
They seem like a power couple that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I you know what?
Yeah.
I applaud them for that.
Yeah. He's
He's in every commercial
so
ever.
Here's the question, though. Are people hating on him because she's the richer of the two by
She
an
blows
order
him out of the water.
by an order of magnitude? And so, is it just that? Is it a kind of like sexism where the woman isn't supposed to be the? I mean, they seem like they treat each other well and they like each other. I don't know. They seem like nice
That
people.
could be why. I won't. I'm not going to dismiss that out of hand. Like
Yeah.
it very could be.
Well, they say that when Beckham started going out with one of the Spice
Oh,
Girls,
yeah. Posh.
like
Yeah.
Posh,
Yeah.
nobody had a problem with it, but she was like, she wasn't Taylor Swift.
No.
He was the biggest star
Right.
by far
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
couple. Whereas this time it's she's worth more and a bigger star, and he's incredibly, one of the the greatest football players right now, but not, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess I would say if you look, I don't know. I'm thinking about where they went, after they got together, right? The Spice Girls kind of spiced out. I don't know. Kind of done, and Beckham is continuing to make headlines, and he had the Netflix special, and but they were. I'm gonna say a little more on equal footing than the Taylor Swift. She's like bringing him up out of relative poverty compared to her.
I would say he's doing okay financially, but I think his brother is the one that's winning the whole game.
Yeah,
like shirtless at the game and like jumping down and just downing like old man beers. Like
doesn't care.
Yeah,
doesn't care.
It is
got enough off money for everything. Right?
I remember somebody saying that what's the point of getting fuck you money if you're not willing to say fuck you?
Fuck you money. Yeah. And he is. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm probably done. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what else we got?
Okay, I have
back to cars.
I have some bullet points, and
right.
I don't want to make this tedious, but we haven't talked about electric cars.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't talked about self-driving cars, which can circle back to the drunk driving problem. One and just on the self-driving thing, somebody just crashed and died, and
the Tesla worker.
Yeah. And he was trying to use it because he was drunk, and so he just Jesus take the wheel, but instead
Elon take the wheel.
Yeah, but those cars are not.
They're not made for that.
They're not ready for that at all. No. Not even close.
Okay, so can we start with electric?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Electric cars, I was kind of a naysayer until I drove one. I drove a relatively simple Model 3 long range, and my God, is there power in that?
Yeah.
And I have heard that that the ridiculous ones like the Plaid Model S is like so unbelievable. You're be blown away by the power. I have a few issues. I'm also a skier, and I am too cheap and also too weak, because I can explain, to fly to Colorado with my kids when we go. When we like to go skiing, it's a 12-hour drive. Too weak is my kids are still kind of little, and I have to carry everything pretty much.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we load up the truck and we drive it out to, quote, recharge.
So you're going to buy a Cybertruck, right?
I love it.
You bastard.
I love it.
You.
I'm not getting one.
Come on, road trip with the Cybertruck.
90, 80, 90,000.
Everybody's looking at us when we pull in. We're like, that's right. We're the biggest fucking douches in town.
We are. I've seen one on the road. Well, it wasn't on the road. It was on a flatbed, but it was on the road on the flatbed. And it was every bit as it was way bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It looked cool.
Hey, man, either like it or you don't. But it's different. That's for sure. So no, I get it, man. I mean, it isn't work for that kind of road trip. You have to plan it out. I know a buddy of mine has Dwayne Byram, who I think he wouldn't mind being mentioned. Nice. And I'm not going to do the heavy metal thing. We're going to wait for the bell. But Dwayne's a cool guy.
You get a bell. Eventually.
We need a goddamn bell.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
We're gonna have to just have a podcast where we go through all the names we've mentioned.
Let's do a GoFundMe to get a bell. Moon
totally.
Underwater needs a bell.
We do need a bell,
and
we'll set that up. Oh yeah.
So Dwayne is he's an Apple programmer from way back when. And whatever. Like he had a Tesla like 5 years ago or more. Like he just had one. He liked it. He also has a gas car that he drives and uses. But his Tesla, he did a road trip across the country, but it was a challenge. It was like him figuring out the route. Yeah. And also like there's like a network of Tesla owners that will let you use their garage.
What?
Did you know that?
Really? No.
Yeah, when you buy one, you get kind of plugged into this network of people, and
Plugged
you could
in.
just
I see what you did
plugged
there.
in, and then you could just like, hey, I'm coming through this time at this time, blah blah blah. Is it
Can I get 30 minutes or whatever?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and they were like, oh hell yeah, and you're one of us.
Yeah.
And so it can be done, but it's like it isn't just like waking up in the morning and hey, I'm going to drive cross country. It's the spontaneity is definitely not there. And
Have you driven one?
no, I've seen them. I saw one. Obviously I've seen them around
Yeah.
all over, but once on a freeway, I was cruising along and there was one ahead of me and then did like a 2-lane passing move, and the way
my.
it moved and accelerated did not look like an automobile.
It does
It
not.
looked like a spaceship.
They're wild.
It went
Yeah.
like it just looked different. It was
Yep.
weird.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow,
It
that
glides.
that is a different kind of machine for
Yeah.
sure. I want the next. So one of the reasons why I'm keeping my Suzuki as long as I can, I want my next car to be an electric, and I'd like to go full electric, but I don't feel like we're there yet. I think
you
5
could
years.
do it.
I think 5 years.
I think you can do it because
I don't really go that.
it's really, I think if you have two cars, right? You have one that you need to charge and that you're not going to take on long trips and it's just for around town.
Yeah.
And then you have one that's gas or a hybrid or a plug-in or whatever. And that works, I think, pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I probably would do a plug-in too. I mean, that's, you can get on some of the little SUVs, you can get 40, 50 miles around town plugged in, and then you plug it in every night, which, knowing me and my wife, neither one of us would, like, we'd get in and be like, forget it. It's just such a hassle.
What,
and then
to
just have a
plug it in?
hybrid. Yeah.
Why is it a hassle to plug it in?
Because every time you come in, you got to plug it in.
Yeah, but it's like plugging in your
know.
phone, man. I mean, yeah, you're like, oh God.
I know. I hate doing that too.
Yeah.
That was. Can't it last longer than that? Yeah.
Gosh, what was I going to say? I had. So I just heard this on NPR. I think just this morning. No, last night. There's every year there is this event where they take all these electric cars in Norway. Mm-hmm. They drive them into the coldest mountains in the winter.
Oh my!
As far as they'll go until the battery dies, and then they get picked up. And what it is it's a test of how well the batteries keep their charge in the most extreme cold weather.
Right.
Because that's an issue.
Well, it's what happens every year during the winter here now that electric cars are, kind of everywhere. It's like people are shocked at how long it's taking to charge their electric cars.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, shit. It's
Yeah.
a battery in the cold. Like what?
Yeah.
So
this year they did it, and the one that lost the least amount of charge, I don't think you would guess what it would be.
It's a Porsche of some kind. I'm
No.
guessing. Okay.
It's counterintuitive.
Chinese.
Yeah.
BYD.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but this Norwegian guy with this great accent, he's like, oh, it looks like one of the cars from the cartoon Cars.
Yeah.
Like it's this really kind of like cute looking but
Yeah.
futuristic, but it only lost 4% of its.
Wow.
And Kia and maybe Volkswagen. No, Kia and BMW came in second.
Okay.
They were very good, and they didn't. Anyway, that's.
They're very good and very expensive, all of them.
Yeah.
And that's the other problem I have. I'm like, man, that's a lot of money.
Even a Kia.
Yeah.
Just feels like it's a
50, 60, 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can get some money. What kind of money do we get from the?
I have no idea.
Is it like 5,000?
That was
Like
$5
tax?
grand. Yeah.
So
And it depends on the manufacturer, like what you're buying.
what about a Chevy Volt? Those were kind of cheap, weren't they? Are they still around?
Yeah, they don't make them anymore. Which
Oh.
it was basically an electric that had a generator in it, and that was the engine.
Okay.
And I believe those were plug-ins as well. I knew somebody that loved theirs,
Yeah.
and there was ads all over for them. There was lots of commentary, and it felt like sponsored content on various news outlets where it's like, oh, I have one and it's great. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, and then they all of a sudden stopped making them, and
Okay.
they made the Bolt. Then after that, little like a kind of a small car.
Yeah.
And that was good until it wasn't. And then my neighbor who has a Model 3,
Yeah.
he had one, and he
So
said,
would you just go with a Tesla yourself at this point, or I feel like there are better car manufacturers than Tesla, like BMW
Yeah.
and Volkswagen, for example, and gosh, Ford, and
yeah. Okay.
Oh boy, now you're like,
Yeah, now you just
settling
there's a
in
can of
for-
worms, and you
Oh.
just handed me a can opener.
oh god, okay,
Man, hopefully our German listening audience is small.
oh boy,
Yeah, I've had 4
dude,
Volkswagens.
you should do whatever you're going to say. Do it in a German accent.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the Germans are BMW would probably be one of the better ones. Volkswagen and electrical things, like I do not. There's not
they're
any
not.
part of me that wants to deal with that.
Do you think there's a parallel with the Manhattan Project? How the Nazis took the wrong?
Yeah.
They made a technological error
Yeah.
that allowed us to get the nuke
I
first.
think so.
And it's basically the same with electric cars.
It's got to be
Sure, that just makes sense.
VW. Let me put it this way. We were buying this is a long time ago. We were buying a Tiguan, and we went into the local dealer, and after getting ignored because I looked like I couldn't afford one, and
Yeah.
my daughter needed a diaper change, and I finally had to ask to get the keys to get into one, and we got in to go out for a test drive in it, and I started it, and I had been asking about German electronics, and were they better than they had been previously? And sales guys going, absolutely, this is really, these cars do really well, and they're super reliable. And we got into the little Tiguan, and I started the car, and the check engine light was on.
Oh.
And
And
he's
that's
like,
like-
oh, that's really weird. We'll have to run it through the shop.
Oh God.
And so
yeah.
we did have several without many issues. We had one with enough that I got rid of it for a car that everybody thinks is reliable that was not at all. So not to besmirch the good name of Subaru, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No. I get
And
it.
so yeah, there's weird shit that goes wrong with Teslas. There's weird shit
Yeah.
that goes wrong. Like Teslas, they have the really cool door handles. Like you have to push the door handle and then you pull it out. Like it's there's a very to make it sleek, right? So
Yeah.
drag coefficient as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But there's mechanical moving parts in that.
Yeah.
In order to pop the door, well, the door
Yeah.
poppers break. And then we don't have a local Tesla dealer. You have to have somebody come out, and they bring a truck, and usually you can get a decent rate. But honestly, that sounds like a hassle. I have a neighbor with the BMW, and that looks really good.
Yeah.
And then the Ford stuff looks good. I'm just pissed off that they called it a Mustang. The Mach-E. Mach-E Mustang. It's not a Mustang.
Yeah.
No, a Mustang is 2 doors. It's a rear-wheel drive coupe. If you would like to kill it, please go ahead, Ford, and kill it.
What about the that new company that does trucks? The
Rivian?
Yeah, Rivian.
I like those a lot. I
They're
think they look
expensive,
really
I
cool.
bet, right?
Yeah, it's $70,000-$80,000
Yeah.
or more. But they look cool.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not I'm spending half that on a car, and I'm a car.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a car guy, but
Yeah.
I want cheap fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
you're a Miata guy.
I am. Yeah.
Yep.
That's like a whole other show. Just,
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's a cool looking car.
It's fun.
Looks like it goes fast.
It doesn't. I mean, it does. It's quick, but fast and
Oh.
fast and quick are different.
Yeah,
right?
it is different, but
Yeah.
quick is more useful because are you really going to go 300 miles or 250 on
No,
no, you can't.
not the way it's geared anyway. But yeah,
But I mean just like a
know.
normal citizen.
No.
Where are you going to drive that fast? But just quick acceleration and nimbleness seems like it's more
For sure.
Yeah.
That car is terrifying to drive, like to the
Mm-hmm.
point where my older daughter is learning right now at the age of 13 in parking lots how to drive a manual transmission. She's got the truck. We've gone and
Good for you.
like here's how we're going to do this, and she will get a manual. My mom has asked me to never let her drive the Miata because she's like that is, I mean, that's designed to kill you. Yeah, it probably
Yes.
is. Yeah. All right.
That sounds like a good place to stop.
does,
I mean,
'cause
we finished our beer a second
We have.
ago, and
We can put a pin in it at
yeah.
that point and come back at a later date and talk about modified cars. And
yeah. So we didn't even get to talk about the thing you wanted to talk about,
I think we did.
like the Okay. The
No.
modified car. Yeah, we could do another one on the modified cars. Like I know.
Cars we've owned. Like we went
Yeah.
through some of it today, but
Yeah.
there's
Sounds fun.
I got a nice long history.
Yeah. Sounds
Okay.
fun. All right, people.
We'll call it
Well,
here.
I guess that is. Let's see. Here's our outro music and
I like outro as a word.
outro. Yeah, me too. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.